Do you see here? Hi, guys and gals. Can you tell I'm on vacation? Well, actually, don't. Today's a Sunday. So I often make a vlog on Sunday. So I've been back from church not too long ago. And it was kind of an interesting service in a way because we had the communion together. We've got different language groups in our church community. And one is the German-speaking or Swiss German-speaking group. And the other one is the French-speaking group. And the foreigners that are there, they kind of, split themselves depending on what is probably their working practice and so on. Anyway, so we had communion together, which is always a good time. And I was asked at one point, to help with the communion service. And it brought me actually back some memories because I was thinking about, how things have evolved over the years where, people used to be at one point that only priests and pastors and so on were allowed to do these things. And now that in today's world, probably out of necessity, but also I was going to say in the Protestant mindset, the so-called lay person has always had a bigger place actually in the community in that way. Anyway, but that wasn't the gist of what I was going to talk about today. I was going to talk about heirlooms. Yeah, I came onto that because I was listening to a podcast while I was walking towards the church, and it was talking at one point about heirlooms and what are they? Why are they so special? And very often, as you know, a heirloom has no real value. I mean, not a great value as far as monetary gain or what you can get out of it, but it has an enormous, usually sentimental value, or brings back something to you that's important, which would be, memories of your past and times that you really, times and people that you cherish. So I brought here a few heirlooms, which you will see have really no great value monetarily. Now, do you see this? It's a little ski with a ski boot. It's one of these little things that you would find in the tourist section of a store. If you notice how old it is, I mean, look at the boot is not, it's one of the old style boots of like probably 50 years more ago. And it straps on to the ski. Now, this was my parents. They had it for years and years and years in the house when we were small. And when my mom left, had to leave the house where she is in, where she was in the last few years of her life, she's still alive. The last few years where they lived, they asked me, are there things that you would like to take and so on? And I asked if I could have this. Like I say, it's of no monetary value, but it's of great sentimental value. It's always been, in a way, part of my life. And even when I would go back visiting my parents and my mom in the last year where she lived in the house, I would look at this, all the time. It's part, it's a heirloom for me. And I will talk about it with the kids and the grandkids, and because they probably will wonder, what is that? And I'll tell them about it. Here you are, that's one. Another one, which is, I've spoken about this before. It's a little hammer. Now, this little hammer, it's a tie clip. And it's a tie clip that is being passed on through several generations from my dad. So, like I say, from my dad's line. And it's being given usually to the firstborn. At least that's what my dad told me. But it doesn't matter. I mean, the story is really good. And the fact is that we come from a family of manual labor people. Maybe I'm not such a manual labor person. But I mean, it's kind of like, don't forget your roots. I used this little hammer as an example when I was in Africa, talking about the question of the importance of roots. And that's actually what heirlooms are to a point, aren't they? They bring you back to those roots of yours. Very often, roots that sometimes you've created, roots that sometimes you might even want to go away from, but heirlooms will bring you back, and you will have to, in a way I was going to say, have to deal with it, and hopefully it'll be, good memories it'll bring back. But we know that it's not always the case. Now, of course, when I look at this, I'm thinking I'm going to have to pass this on. My dad wanted to pass it on to me before he left us and passed on to another place. But I actually always told him, no, I really, I didn't want it until the last time that we met. And then I did tell him that I would take it, and he was happy. Now, actually, I know that it's going to have to, I'm going to say after a few years with me still, it'll be passed on. And there'll be the other children and the grandchildren, So here, that's one of these heirlooms. The third one I was going to share with is a completely different one. It is a very old Bible. And it belonged to my great-great-grandfather, Orion A. Reed. And this was his Bible. And it's kind of interesting because it's in French. And he used to go, from what I found out, speaking over the years, he was, it seems, a Bible-believing Christian, and would go to a French-speaking church, which is quite amusing, actually, when you think, that over in Canada, and especially in Quebec, the English-speaking people usually went to English-speaking churches or whatever, but at least that's what came out. It's a Bible it's an Osterwald version, but it's from 1887. And as a child, I can't even read this anymore. It's so small. It is really, really, really small. And I used to find it very challenging, even small, to read it. But I would love to go and read stories. I would read Samson and Delilah, David and Goliath. And these were stories that, now you have to see, I come from my parents. My mom was Anglican, my dad was Catholic. When they got married, it's a Quebec thing and a Catholic church thing, they basically had to become, my mom had to become Catholic. But she brought me up, and I was going to say almost going to say in an Anglican or Protestant way, is that she taught me what was needed. She didn't know that, the school was supposed to do all that stuff. Good for her. But she taught us, catechism and stuff like that at home. And then just went to the priest and said, okay, what's stopping you now? My kids have had all their teaching, give them communion. But no, back to the story here is that when I think about it, a lot of the Bible stories that I read came from here, because in the Catholic tradition, people didn't, the Bible readings or what you had were from what you got at church, and you didn't read much at home. So I did nevertheless read a lot, and that together with what my mom taught me, and I was going to say thanks to Billy Graham, I'm pretty much the Christian that I am. But this is an enormous, beautiful heirloom for me. It's passed on from my great-grandfather, and my grandfather gave it to me, so my mom's dad, and really happy to have this, actually. I didn't look for it, but I've got another heirloom from my grandfather, so my mom's dad. It's a cap. So surprise, surprise, probably that's where the love of caps come from. Anyway, so heirlooms, there's just so much, in that. So much to tell us. Right behind us, behind me, there's the Christmas tree. And how many heirloom memories are there around Christmas trees? You know what I mean. Anyway, tell me about it. Do you have any heirlooms of yourself? You have yourself at home that you've kept from family members and that you cherish? Just leave it in the comments and so on. And I see I'm coming up to 10 minutes, so I'll just be stopping here. But I was DC, so we'll be signing off, talking about heirlooms. Have a good Sunday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.